This is our third part to our illustration project. And today I want to show you a couple techniques that will be helpful to you as you complete your project. The first thing I want to talk about is color. I know that your sets came with a lot of different tubes, but we're going to create a sense of limitation. All right. So here's my palette. All right. And I've set some colors out here, the same ones that you have. All right. So I have my bright yellow, which is the one that's a little more lemony, next to ultramarine blue. So here I'm going to make some greens. Here I have the darker yellow, which you have. It's yellow ochre, and the ultramarine blue again. And I'm going to make darker greens here and warmer greens. All right. Here I have burnt sienna and ultramarine blue again. I'm going to make some of the darker accents. Okay. And then down here I have a little bit of the alizarin, and I'm going to be extremely minimal about using this color. I may add a little bit to some of my darks or a little bit to some of my greens to make them deeper and slightly more neutralized. And over here I have my green on reserve. I'm not sure I'm going to use it, but it's there if I need to just change the greens that I'm trying to mix. Okay, so there's no white and no black, and there's only one blue. Okay, all right. So the first thing I want to talk about is using washes. All right, I'm just going to show you some techniques that may help you. Okay, so most times when you work on a watercolor, you start with the lights. So I can identify, like let's say my sun is coming in here by the top of this tree. All right. In watercolor, you can always get darker, but it's much harder to get lighter. So always start light and slowly darken your areas. Okay. All right. So then I mixed up my green with using the ultra in the exact same yellow. Okay. I can lay in some greens. Let's say this is more foliage. Okay. In front. Now I may want some of my greens a little bit warmer. So I'm going, I mixed everything with this combination. Now I'm going over to my warmer blue and yellow, the ultra and the yellow ochre. Okay. And I can add some of the darker accents. Okay. Don't get too heavy. You see how light I am? And that gives me the option of going in darker. And these are all done with washes, right? I can add more blue to my green, create a sense of some shadows. Okay. When you're outside, the shadows are primarily toward the blue. Okay. Maybe I'll put this thing in shadow here. All right. So I'm working on my background, right? Where my objects, either my chair, my table, books, papers, bed, are going to reside. All right. Another way to do washes, and I'm not going to draw anything. I'm just going to show you a technique. You can wet the paper like this. And then you can lay in right over that, and what you'll see is that having the water down first will blend the tones pretty easily. Okay, so that's another technique. And if you feel like you want them even more blended or transition, you can just go in with water and soften those edges, and it'll slowly, the color will slowly blend in to the water area. Okay. Now the next thing I want to show you is called dry brushing. Okay, here I've gone in with some foliage. All right, you can see I have some darks versus some light areas. Make sure you leave some white of the paper, okay? Because that makes it feel like it's really illuminated in the sunlight. All right, so let's say I added my washes and now I want to add some interest on top of this. I can use a method called dry brushing. And I'm going to show you 2 different ways to do it, okay? One way to do it is to take some water off of your brush. The brush is still a little wet, okay? And I can just go in on dry paper, rolling with the side of my brush to create a technique like that, okay? Very dry. The brush still has a little water in it, but not a lot. And I'm going sideways on the brush and rolling it around, okay? The more traditional way to do it is to clean your brush off. You're going to dry your brush, and then you're going to spread the hairs on your brush, okay? Can you see that? And then I'm going to dip it into some paint that's not too wet, all right? And like if I want a grass here, I can add just dry brush, dry paper, dry brush, the hair spread so it gives a more kind of texture and linear feeling to it. And that would be a good way to do grass, right? So I could add a little bit of grass in here. Very, very dry. All right. I could also use it to add interest to maybe some of my trees. Okay, so let me get some darker color here. All right. And then maybe I'm going to go in and say, well, you know, this one maybe there's a little pine tree in front, okay? Or maybe I want some more texture back here. So everything is very, very dry. Okay, that's why it's called dry brush. All right, so there's 2 different ways to do it. One is to work on very dry paper and roll your brush sideways with the color and sort of work it that way. Or to spread the hairs and apply it more in like a linear kind of way. And this is a good way to do detail on your objects, especially your point of focus too. It adds a little texture.